In Ukraine, another mass grave is discovered in Bucha. Firefighters on the ground in Texas reported that a wildfire north of San Antonio, which had burned some 2,800 acres, was now 50% contained. Deputy Fire Chief Scott Ridner of the Joint Base San Antonio Fire Emergency Services said residents in Comal County who had been told to evacuate their homes could now return. He also said that there were no reports of damaged structures or injuries as of Sunday afternoon. Millions of voters cast their ballots in the first round of the French presidential election. Up to 48 million eligible French voters will be choosing between 12 candidates. President Emmanuel Macron is seeking a second five-year term with a strong challenge from the far right and nationwide voter apathy. Other prominent contenders are far-right candidate Marine Le Pen and far-left firebrand Jean-Luc Mélenchon. The polls close at 7 p.m. and at 8 p.m. in some larger cities. Unless someone gets more than half of the nationwide vote, there will be a second and decisive round on Sunday, April 24th. Some problems occurred on recent administration are COVID handling, Ukraine war, and climate change rhetoric. And other issues are the high popularity of extreme movements, so residents hope that the new president will reunite French citizens. Now to the Australian federal election, where Prime Minister Scott Morrison warns voters not to risk a change to uncertain future under the opposition, while the Labour leader Anthony Albanese says now is the time to seize opportunity for better times ahead. On his first full day of campaigning, Australian opposition leader Anthony Albanese stumbled when he failed to recall key economic statistics, including unemployment rate and central bank interest rate. The stumble fits the Conservative government's argument that Albanese has never held an economic portfolio in government and cannot be trusted to manage Australia's economy. Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who is seeking a fourth three-year term, called the election a choice on whether to continue his administration's strong economic management. Albanese, who has an economics degree from Sydney University, described his failure to recall economic statistics at a news conference as a mistake.
The truth is that what they have said, the Reserve Bank, is that over the coming period,
the ouster of Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan led his supporters onto the streets in protest, even as the political opposition was preparing to install his replacement. Khan was brought down after a day of drama and often vitriolic remarks. His supporters accused Washington of orchestrating his ouster, and his party walked out of parliament shortly before the vote. In the end, 174 lawmakers in the 342-seat parliament voted to depose him to more than the required simple majority. Khan's successor is to be elected and sworn in by parliament on Monday. The leading contender is Shahbaz Sharif, a brother of disgraced former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Specially designated Ukrainian war crimes prosecutors and forensic experts have exhumed another 9 bodies from the mass grave uncovered on local church grounds, taking the total to 30 people hurriedly buried by retreating Russian forces. Walking through Bucha, a reporter encountered 24 witnesses of the Russian occupation. Almost everyone said they saw a body, sometimes several more. Civilians were killed, mostly men, sometimes picked off at random. Many, including the elderly, say they themselves were threatened. The question that survivors, investigators, and the world would like to answer is why? Some believe the house-to-house targeting of younger men was a hunt for those who had fought the Russians in recent years in separatist-held eastern Ukraine and had been given shelter in the town. Now that the Russians have left, bodies are being collected by searchers wary of booby traps and mines. According to Bucha Mayor Anatoly Fedoruk, the latest count of dead civilians was 320. Most died from gunshots, and some corpses with their hands tied were dumped like firewood into mass graves. Meanwhile, Ukraine's army said Russia may carry out provocations in Moldova's breakaway Transnistria region in order to accuse Ukraine of aggression. Speaking at a daily briefing, General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine spokesperson Alexander Shputun said that fighting was ongoing in the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions, claiming Ukrainian forces had repelled 4 Russian attacks in the past 24 hours.
Противник продовжує створення наступального угруповання військ для дій на Слобожанському напрямку. Імовірно, найближчими днями окупанти намагатимуться відновити наступ. Окрім того, ворог продовжує здійснювати підготовку та відправку особового складу, озброєння та техніки для участі в бойових діях на території України. Здійснюється підготовка озброєння та військової техніки у пункті постійної дислокації 60-ї окремої мотострілецької бригади «Монастирище» 5-ї загальновійськової армії Східного військового округу. Ймовірно, зазначене озброєння буде переміщено на тимчасово окуповану територію Донецької області.
Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson traveled to Ukraine to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky in a show of solidarity. The two leaders discussed the UK's long-term support to Ukraine, including a new package of financial and military aid. The visit comes a day after Johnson pledged another £100 million, or $130 million in high-grade military equipment to Ukraine, saying Britain wanted to help Ukraine defend itself from continuing Russian assaults. Speaking on a Friday at a news conference with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Johnson said he would give Ukraine's military more Star-Streak anti-aircraft missiles, another 800 anti-tank missiles, and precision munitions capable of lingering in the sky until directed to their target. He also promised more helmets, night vision, and body armor. The items were in addition to some 200,000 pieces of non-lethal military equipment from the UK that had already been promised. New Zealand will send a military transport plane and a support team of 50 Defence Force personnel to Europe, as well as give money to Britain to buy weapons, as it significantly steps up its response to the war in Ukraine. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said her government would also spend an additional 13 million New Zealand dollars, or equally $9 million on military and human rights support. Ardern said that brings New Zealand's total contribution to the war effort to New Zealand 30 million New Zealand dollars, or $20 million, with 67 people deployed.
Today I'm announcing that New Zealand will deploy to Europe a New Zealand Defence Force C-130 Hercules aircraft supported by a team of 50 Defence Force personnel to assist with the transportation and distribution of donated military aid to Ukraine. An international donor coordination centre has been set up in Germany to coordinate the flow of military aid to Ukraine. Over the next 2 months, our C-130 will join a chain of military aircraft from partner nations, travelling throughout Europe carrying much-needed equipment and supplies to key distribution centres. But at no point will they enter Ukraine, nor have they been asked.
In the wake of Russia's withdrawal from towns surrounding the Ukrainian capital Kiev, residents say they are heartbroken by the death and destruction left behind. The Ukrainian government has said evidence appears to show that Russia has committed war crimes. World leaders accusing Russia of war crimes, as video out of the Kiev suburb of Bucha shows people shot and left dead in the streets. VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Bepp has more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Bucha, less than 30 kilometers from the capital, where bodies lie motionless in the streets, some with hands tied behind their backs.
It is very difficult to talk when you see what they have done here. People left in barrels, basements, having been strangled or simply tortured. These are war crimes, and they will be recognized by the world as genocide.
The Pentagon says it's obvious Russia is responsible, with President Joe Biden on Monday condemning the brutality.
And what's happening in Bucha is outrageous, and everyone's seen it. Up to Allah.
Genocide?
No, I think it is a war crime.
Are you going to do more sanctions on Russia?
I'm seeking more sanctions, yes.
Russia has denied responsibility and called the images out of Bucha fake.
After the Russian military had left according to the plans and agreements, a fake was staged that is now being spread throughout all media channels and social media by the Ukrainian representatives and their Western patrons.
But satellite imagery shows bodies had lain in Bucha for weeks before Russian troops left. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said most of the Russian troops amassed near Kyiv and its suburbs have retreated, moving out to resupply as Ukrainians attack them.
The Russians have, at least for the time being, given up on a ground offensive against Kyiv.
Western officials say Russia now appears ready to focus more on the Donbas region to the east, which has seen recent increases in Russian airstrikes and military maneuvers. And Ukrainian officials warn that atrocities in the towns and cities that they haven't reached could be even worse than those in Bucha. Carla Babb, VOA News, the Pentagon.
Coming up next on World News, Gojek Tokopedia company has officially made their Indonesian stock market debut. We have more on that story after the break.
Pandeminya terkontrol, itu sudah berpindah tanggung jawabnya ke masyarakat.
Orang boleh mudik kalau sudah booster.
Ini congratulations, apresiasi buat Kementerian Kesehatan kita semua bersama-sama.
Nah, dengan adanya G20 di Indonesia itu satu kesempatan yang luar biasa menurut saya.
Medcom.id, a part of Media Group Network.
Halo pemirsa, ada yang penting untuk kita simak.
Yaitu cerita tentang pengalaman hidup kesehatan seseorang. Karena dalam setiap perbincangan selalu ada solusinya.
Yang harus kita petik sebagai pelajaran. Saksikan Go Healthy. Cara tepat hidup sehat.
Di bulan Ramadan ini, Ustadz Das'at Latif hadir untuk memberikan motivasi agar hidup Anda semakin gaspol beribadah.
Di akhirat kelak, yang pertama sekali menentukan amal kebaikan kita adalah sholat 5 waktu. Jangan pernah sangka buruk. Tidak ada untungnya bagi mereka yang sangka buruk kepada Allah.
Gaspol Sahur bersama Ustadz Das'at Latif. Setiap hari jam 3 pagi selama bulan Ramadan. Dipersembahkan oleh Badan Amil Zakat Nasional atau Basnas kembali menggagas layanan zakat untuk Presiden, Wakil Presiden, dan para Menteri di Istana Negara pada Ramadan 1443 Hijriah ini. Dengan berzakat, diharapkan umat Islam dapat menggerakkan pertumbuhan ekonomi dan mengentaskan kemiskinan. Live event Nusantara Cinta Zakat, Selasa 12 April jam 9:30 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh, didukung oleh
kualitas sel darah, tekanan darah, dan kadar gula darah harus selalu terkontrol agar penyakit tidak menyerang tubuh kita.
Kadar kolesterol yang tinggi dalam darah manusia dapat meningkatkan risiko penyakit yang mematikan.
Jadi mulailah hidup sehat, perhatikan kesehatan darah dan pembuluh darah.
Manfaatkan teknologi untuk bantu kesehatan tubuh Anda. Ingat, kualitas darah menentukan kualitas hidup.
Saksikan Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Sosi Cek Ombak, setiap Sabtu jam 10 malam.
You're back on One World News. At the first B20 International Advocacy Caucus, CEOs and business leaders from G20 countries discussed 3 priority issues regarding global economic recovery. Among those 3 priority issues include equal access to health and vaccines, green economy transformation, and an economic recovery that is inclusive, especially financial and digital inclusion for women and small businesses. This forum is part of the B20 or Business 20 group that is part of Indonesia's G20 presidency, as it aims to create key recommendations for the G20 in pushing for a stronger, inclusive, and sustainable global economic growth. The chair of the B20, Shinta Kamdani, affirmed that wider cooperation is needed between governments and the private sector to ensure that the world can reach carbon net zero. Go2 Gojek Tokopedia company has officially made their Indonesian stock market debut and is now listed on the IDX. In their debut, Gojek Tokopedia shares rose by 23%, rising to 416 rupiah per share from their IPO share price of 338 rupiah. Around 300,000 investors took part in Gojek Tokopedia's initial public offering or IPO as the company raised $1.1 billion from the IPO. The CEO of Go2, Gojek Tokopedia, Andre Sulistyo, said that the company is committed to growing its company for the next 100 years and beyond, and is also looking to make an impact abroad, as the company also plans to list its shares in the U.S.
Kami berkomitmen untuk terus membangun dan mengembangkan perusahaan ini agar semakin berkontribusi terhadap negara dan tiap orang yang menjadi bagian dari ekosistem Go2, tidak hanya untuk 5-10 tahun ke depan, tetapi untuk 100 tahun ke depan dan masa yang berkelanjutan. Kami memang lahir dan besar di Indonesia, tapi kami ingin berdampak di kancah dunia.
Indonesia State Electricity Company or PLN and online ride-hailing company Grab are collaborating to develop electric vehicle charging stations to help support the use of electric vehicles in Indonesia. PLN and Grab will collaborate to build at least 4 electric vehicle charging stations across Jakarta.
The Indonesian government are making big efforts to facilitate the use of electric vehicles in Indonesia. Currently, you can easily buy a wide variety of electric cars in Indonesia. And what's more, the government are building more and more electric vehicle charging stations. As part of these efforts, Indonesia State Electricity Company PLN and online ride-hailing company Grab are collaborating to develop electric vehicle charging stations. PLN and Grab will collaborate to build at least 6 electric vehicle charging stations across Jakarta. Specifically, they will be built in Gambir, Bulungan, Cempaka Putih, and Kramat Jati areas in Jakarta.
Kerjasamakan ada 6 titik di 4 lokasi kantor PLN yang sudah kerjasama dengan Grab. Investasi kalau kita rata-ratakan ya 1 titik sekitar 500 juta, jadi kalau 8 sekitar 4 miliar rupiah ya, untuk di Jakarta sendiri.
Meanwhile, online ride-hailing company Grab has over 8,000 electric vehicles that are operating in their fleet in Indonesia. This year, Grab is targeting to increase their fleet of electric vehicles to 14,000.
Untuk saat ini kita sudah ada 8.500 kendaraan listrik yang mengaspal. Jadi yang tadi seperti saya sebutkan itu dampaknya cukup masif ya. Jadi pengurangan karbon emisi sebesar 4.600 ton sama dengan penanaman 260.000 pohon. Nah di tahun 2022 akan kami tambahkan targetnya menjadi 14.000 kendaraan listrik. Nanti tentunya tahun depan dan seterusnya target itu akan bertambah.
Currently, in Jakarta, there are 26 electric vehicle charging stations spread across 18 locations. This year, Indonesia State Electricity Company PLN are targeting to add 7 more charging stations across the capital city.
For Muslims around the world, this year marks the third holy month of Ramadan held during the pandemic. And the story will coming up on the other episode of World News, while next on World News we will display the Steven Seagal turns 70. Stay with us.
Setiap saat, berita bertabur di ruang publik. Namun hanya media Indonesia memberikan yang terbaik, mendalam, terpercaya, dan mudah diakses di mana saja dan kapan saja. Media Indonesia Cetak, mediaindonesia.com, dan e-paper Media Indonesia layak menjadi referensi Anda. Media Indonesia, referensi bangsa.
Halo pemirsa, ada yang penting untuk kita simak.
Yaitu cerita tentang pengalaman hidup kesehatan seseorang. Karena dalam setiap perbincangan selalu ada solusinya.
Yang harus kita petik sebagai pelajaran.
Saksikan Go Healthy. Cara tepat hidup sehat.
Di bulan Ramadan ini, Ustadz Dasat Latif hadir untuk memberikan motivasi agar hidup Anda semakin gaspol beribadah.
Di akhirat kelak, yang pertama sekali menentukan amal kebaikan kita adalah sholat 5 waktu. Jangan pernah sangka buruk. Tidak ada untungnya bagi mereka yang sangka buruk kepada Allah.
Gaspol Sahur bersama Ustadz Dasat Latif. Setiap hari jam 3 pagi selama bulan Ramadan. Dipersembahkan oleh Badan Amil Zakat Nasional atau Basnas kembali menggagas layanan zakat untuk Presiden, Wakil Presiden, dan para Menteri di Istana Negara pada Ramadan 1443 Hijriah ini. Dengan berzakat, diharapkan umat Islam dapat menggerakkan pertumbuhan ekonomi dan mengentaskan kemiskinan. Live event Nusantara Cinta Zakat, Selasa 12 April jam 9:30 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh, didukung oleh
kualitas sel darah, tekanan darah, dan kadar gula darah harus selalu terkontrol agar penyakit tidak menyerang tubuh kita.
Kadar kolesterol yang tinggi dalam darah manusia dapat meningkatkan risiko penyakit yang mematikan.
Jadi mulailah hidup sehat, perhatikan kesehatan darah dan pembuluh darah.
Manfaatkan teknologi untuk bantu kesehatan tubuh Anda. Ingat, kualitas darah menentukan kualitas hidup.
Saksikan Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Badan Amil Zakat Nasional atau Basnas kembali menggagas layanan zakat untuk Presiden, Wakil Presiden, dan para Menteri di Istana Negara pada Ramadan 1443 Hijriah ini. Dengan berzakat, diharapkan umat Islam dapat menggerakkan pertumbuhan ekonomi dan mengentaskan kemiskinan. Live event Nusantara Cinta Zakat, Selasa 12 April jam 9:30 pagi. Dipersembahkan oleh, didukung oleh, mari ubah perilaku, pakai masker untuk lindungi kita semua.
In our top entertainment news for tonight, Tom Holland and America's Got Talent were some of the winners at the 2022 Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards. Sonic 2 steals the weekend box office, but Ambulance stalls, and Steven Seagal turned 70.
There was slam aplenty at the 2022 Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards in Santa Monica on Saturday. Among the winners were Olivia Rodrigo, who scooped 2 awards for Favorite Female TV Star for Kids and Favorite Breakout Artist. Tom Holland won Favorite Movie Actor for his performance in Spider-Man No Way Home, which also won the top prize of Favorite Movie. And Simon Cowell and Company make up the America's Got Talent team, which took the Favorite Reality Show accolade. The show also hit a new high, with 1,000 people being slimed, including the 2 presenters, Miranda Cosgrove and Rob Gronkowski. It's the box office report. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 sped to the top of the charts in its opening weekend, earning an impressive $71 million, according to studio estimates Sunday. Paramount's PG-rated sequel easily best